We're back. President Obama drew a line in the sand today. As you just heard it, renewing tax cuts for the rich he will not do. He said he's going to defend Medicare in the face of Republicans' attempt to radically restructure or demolish it, if you will. For more on the president's plan to reduce the deficits, let's go right now to our strategist, Democrat Steve McMahon and Republican Ed Rollins. Ed, I guess you're skeptical of the president's willpower here because he said the last time he went along with tax cuts for the rich, continuing the Bush tax cuts for people over $250,000 a year because he wanted to protect those below $250,000. He will be faced with the same question, I think, at the end of 2012, and then again, the hostage-taking could continue. Won't he be in the same situation?
Well, he may not be a president. He may have just been defeated in November of 2012.
Well, he still gets to act in December.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to be much to act if he's been defeated, I promise you. At the end of the day, there are 23 Democrat senators who are up in that election. Obviously, the dynamics could change dramatically to where Republicans control both. So I think this is all rhetoric, and I think to a certain extent Joe Biden had it right. He slept through part of the speech today. It was pretty boring. I've been around as long as you have, and I've heard this $3 cut for every dollar in tax increase. And as we used to say, a tax increase is forever. A budget cut is to the next supplemental.
Well, it seems like a tax cut is forever because Obama does have that challenge. Do you think he's credible with liberals saying he will raise the taxes on the rich to help reduce the deficit, or isn't he?
I do think he's credible with liberals, and I think what the liberals would like to see is for him to pick a fight on this, because this is one where the public is absolutely in Obama's corner. He made an interesting point today about the bottom 90% of wage earners in this country have actually had their average incomes go down in the last 10 years, and for the top 1%, they've gone up by an average of $250,000. Those people are in a position to be able to pay a little bit more. They've benefited from the tax code for a very long time, and now perhaps it's time at a moment of fiscal crisis for the country for them to give a little bit more back.
Well, a lot of people read the president's speech today as basically a whack at Paul Ryan's Republican budget plan. Let's listen to the president today talk about that and also the whole question. Let's listen to it.
This is a vision that says even though Americans can't afford to invest in education at current levels or clean energy, even though we can't afford to maintain our commitment on Medicare and Medicaid, we can somehow afford more than $1 trillion in new tax breaks for the wealthy. They want to give people like me a $200,000 tax cut that's paid for by asking 33 seniors each to pay $6,000 more in health costs. That's not right. And it's not going to happen as long as I'm president.
You know, the big question is when reality is going to bite here on this budget deficit. The average person doesn't know how the deficit affects them, but they will know if their Medicare is radically changed and no longer do they get automatic payments for pills and everything else and hospital expenses, that they have to go out and shop for a health insurance plan in their 70s and 80s. When do you think it's going to cut? When are the deficits going to matter to average people? I say it's when they start losing real benefits. What do you say?
I think when they start losing real benefits, and also when they start thinking about their kids and their grandkids, and I think that's the serious challenge here. There's no easy answers here. If there's an easy answer, the Democrats would have done it, the Republicans would have done it. Every one of these commitments that have been made, whether it's Medicare, Medicaid, defense spending, or what have you, are all basically end up being to some special interest or to take care of some particular group, which is our military that's now in 3 wards. At the end of the day, when you start taking those things away, then you basically alienate a voter group. Obviously, for Republicans, you want to reform Medicare, you're going to basically affect senior voters who are a very important element of our party. The only way you're going to get this thing is for everybody to bite the bullet and go work at it together, and that's not going to happen in the foreseeable future.
Steve McMahon.
Ed's right that there are no easy answers, but under the Ryan plan, the only people being asked really to bite the bullet are senior citizens and people who can't afford to bite the bullet because they've been biting it for a long time. And the people who get spared from any sacrifice at all are the wealthy. Paul Ryan wants to extend the Bush tax cuts to the people who have benefited the most
Let's go where the tire hits the road. The Reagan Democrats. Ed, you brought him in for Reagan back in '84. You were the campaign manager for President Reagan. You know what working-class Democrats who vote Republican are like. We just saw the very close number in Pennsylvania. This next election is probably going to be decided in states like Ohio, Pennsylvania, and out there. My question to you is, are there middle-class people who live and decide elections because they switch back and forth? A lot of them Catholics tend to switch back and forth. Are they going to be more moved by a big cut in Medicare Medicare, or the fact that we have higher taxes for the rich? What's going to move their vote?
Well, obviously, you reform Medicare, you take it away from their parents or what have you, they're going to be very unhappy. Both sides are now arguing you have to do that. At the end of the day, you know, sure, if you have the votes, you could raise taxes on the rich. I'm not for it. I'm not rich either. But at the end of the day, you can get away with that. Public opinion will support that. Whether that's good for the economy and whether that basically affects those blue-collar Democrats in places like Pennsylvania, and if they're not convinced that their jobs are going to come back, then that's what the indictment is.
Well, listen.
Well, what do you want to answer that same question? What's better for the middle class? I mean, middle class, $50,000 a year. That person says, look, I got to pay my bills. I don't care if the rich have to pay more taxes. My grandmother or my mother needs that Medicare payment because I can't pay her hospital bills.
That's right. One of the things that we know about these swing states, particularly states like Ohio and Pennsylvania, is seniors there vote, and seniors there pay attention to these.
You know why? They don't have the money to move to Florida.
Right. When you start talking about changes to Medicare and Social Security, which means seniors are going to get less, they're concerned. And when you couple that with, you know, we're going to ask seniors to get less, and we're going to let the wealthiest Americans have more. I think a lot of people think that's unfair. What you're seeing right now, I think, is a vision for campaign 2012. It's very different between the Republicans and the president.
Even if you increase the taxes, which you're not going to get, the Republicans are not going to go along with that.
I got to go.
States like Florida are still going to be in play, and unless we get this economy moving again, get some growth, we're never going to solve these problems.
Okay, thank you. I know we got to get down well below 8. Thank you, Steve McMahon. Thank you, Ed Rollins. As always, when we return, let me finish with the case President Obama made today and why we're really not the cowboy country we sometimes think we are and are told we are. You're watching